case you're wondering, what are those unusual sounds you're hearing there? The first clip is the sound of Taino, traditional Taino music, said to be the people who first inhabited this region as far as our modern history goes. And that's because we will shortly welcome our guest in our current affairs segment to share some information that we all should know. And it's called the Taino song of Quisqueya Turewa by Arroyo Productions from Puerto Rico. And the second one that you're listening to is Return for Me by Lost Taino Tribe, a song dedicated to all the Taino brothers and sisters out there finding their way back together. And so we welcome Behike, Kalaan, Nibonri, our representative of the Taino community in Jamaica. And we have him here online. Welcome to Your Health Matters, Behike, Kalaan, Nibonri.
I'm home. Thank you for having me here and this opportunity to hear my relatives here and abroad, those tuning in online. Thank you.
Yes, it's our pleasure to welcome you back to Your Health Matters. And this time of year your community seems to become a little bit more active, and I understand that you had a celebration very recently. Could you tell us a little bit about your role and what the community is about, and also about the celebration recently?
Okay, well, to begin, as Behike, you are a ceremonial leader, wisdom keeper of the tradition, and what I would do is with healing, guidance, and basically help with rites of passage and initiation, helping our people to connect. Above me would be the Grandmothers Council and the elders that are from the different islands. Quisqueya is our indigenous word for the Dominican Republic. Borinquen is for Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Cubanacan is Cuba. So we're trying to reconnect all of the islands and what we had lost before. And the ceremony you're making reference towards is from our relatives at Sankofi House of Journeys that held recently an Akom, which is an African ceremony, but it was geared towards honoring the Taino ancestors. And this was done in preparation for a spiritual run that we'll be having from March 14th to the 20th, which ends on the day of the spring equinox, which is one of our ceremonies that we celebrate. That is one of our big celebrations. We have an arepu, which is our word for celebration.
Arepu.
Yes, celebrating the equinox. So for us here on the island, the equinox is that time of rebirth. Modern societies now, they would connect it with spring. It is when the birds start to breed. It is when the queen conch starts to as well. So a lot of what our ancestors connected to as food and the awareness of those cycles is present at this point in time. That strong energy of life, and it's the end of the dry, cold season throughout the Caribbean.
Yes, interesting that you have noted that seasons are important. They are what your calendar is guided by.
Correct. Moon cycles and the seasons. A lot has shifted now from how it was for our ancestors, but it is still important to be mindful of these anchor points in the sky, to be mindful of the stars. For example, Sirius is mostly, for us in the Caribbean, Sirius coming off of Orion's belt, one of the brightest stars in the night sky,
Mm-hmm.
is mostly towards the north during the after winter solstice, and it moves towards the east as the winter solstice passes, and you know that you're heading into spring. And these were things that the ancient stories would speak to us in most, if not all cultures, all indigenous cultures. And when you look on time as, measurements that will help to guide the season of the rainy season or the dry season, so you know how to prepare and to live in harmony with nature, you realize that it's a thread that connects all indigenous communities.
Indeed. There seems to be something happening. Other indigenous groups around the world also seem to be coming together. I have been hearing about the original inhabitants of what is commonly called Turtle Island, retelling their history, the Northern American land masses that have been given various other names. And here in the Caribbean, we have been told that the Taino disappeared. They were just worked to death. They couldn't resist the European diseases. I mean, these are his stories that we tell still in schools today. So it really is a wonderful opportunity for people to hear that the descendants and those who continue to identify with Taino traditions in the Caribbean are saying, we're still here and
Yes.
we're alive and well.
Yes, there are a lot of projects going on. I mean, the run that we're having I'll share some information with you guys, that the run that we'll be having from March 14th, it will start at Emancipation Park, is a spiritual run, and it came about in 1992. They call it the Peace and Dignity Journeys, because in 92, some were celebrating 500 years of discovery, and the indigenous people of Abya-Yala, which is one of the names for Turtle Island, for the Americas, wanted to do something to show that we were still here. We were still here and we were proud of being here. And they gathered in Ecuador for a meeting, an intertribal meeting. And through ceremony, it was revealed that a lot of prophecies of different nations were similar. So the Hopis had a prophecy that was similar to other tribes. Some would speak of the return of the white buffalo. Some would speak of the eagle and the condor flying together. Eagle representing the north, the condor representing the south. And for the Tainos, we had the prophecy of Aura Sore, which is Morning Star, where she said that after 500 years, the Taino people would come together again. And our view, indigenous people's view of prophecies, is not something that you sit down and watch or wait for. It is something that you're an active part of. You're part in that creation. So to bring that prophecy to fruition, they started this prayer run, because our ancestors would send messengers that were runners, and staffs were totems that would hold prayers. They'd have a specific prayer and you'd put it in that staff, and they'd run with the staff, and each step along the landmass, along the continent, was spreading that prayer and sharing it with different communities. And in 92, runners started from Kalaan, Alaska, and from Argentina, and they ran and met in Mexico, running over the whole continent, connecting with other tribes. And they do this big run every 4 years. So the last run was in 2016, and the prayer was for the seed, food, or indigenous food, with all of the GMO and all of that was going on. We really have to pray for our food.
Yes.
And the connections were made, and myself and Kasabiana Velva Lawrence was asked to represent the Tainos of Jamaica.
Yes.
And Jamaica, we're a very big spirited people already. We ended up not only representing Jamaica on the run, but from New York to Panama, we ended up representing the entire Caribbean. So we were the only two people there representing all of the islands, and everywhere we went, we were speaking about our Taino relatives in Quisqueya, in Cuba, in Borinquen, and their issues and their plight.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to change that mindset that we're extinct, trying to
Yes.
erase that European mindset. Because, in North America, for an indigenous person to claim their indigenous identity,
Yes.
they use blood quantum. So they need a percentage of what they consider indigenous blood.
This is the beginning of what sounds like a very interesting topic on its own. We will certainly have to revisit it.
Before we leave, Kalaan, let me ask you, as a layman, not schooled in history, hearing about the word Taino, probably for the first time in my life, probably in the 90s. Who exactly is a Taino, and how could one identify a Taino?
All right. So, traditionally, the Taino people, who they consider or classify the Taino, is the Amerindians or indigenous people of the Caribbean, Greater Antilles and the Antilles. What happened is we were taught in school that they were Arawaks, and the researchers realized that that was in error because they spoke an Arawakan language.
Mm-hmm.
The Arawaks are still in South America, living off the Orinoco River basin and some other relatives that we consider cousins. Now, the term Taino, there's still a lot of deliberation about the meaning. The next groups defined it as good people. We're coming to understand now that Taino really represents relatives. What happened is when the Spaniards came, there were Tainos on the ship with them. And the indigenous ones on the island pointed to those on the ship and were saying, Taino, Taino. And it was documented, and they assumed that that meant good people, in contrast to what they told us was the Caribs, which again is another term they make up because they were really Kalinago people.
Mm.
So now it is a term that we acknowledge and we accept because people understand it as such. In reality, each person on an island has their own name for their tribe or their group or their people. But the collective we consider Taino.
Okay.
So, listeners, we've been introduced to some words, arepu, for the next celebration coming up, which is the equinox.
Yes,
is that
March
correct?
20th at Seville. And we'll be sharing more information in the paper and on social media. To keep up with that, it's on Facebook.
Yes.
Look for Run Taino Run.
Run, Taino, Run. Okay.
Yes, Run Taino Run.
Love it. Run Taino Run on Facebook. Run Taino Run Jamaica, you said?
Yamaye. Yamayeka.
Jamaica. Okay. So we'll be keeping up with that, and also I'm sure there's much more to come. Our health topic this evening is the health benefits of sexual energy. And in just looking back at the history of the region, one of the things that we saw, Behike, is the change in culture regarding how one dressed or did not dress oneself, and some of the assumptions of a type of perversion being associated with nudity and so on. And when you look at the writings of Columbus and other Spaniards who were here, you saw an approach to what we would consider sexual culture. You saw an approach that is still with us today, and it is to objectify the other person and bring, commodity and, in the same line of thought and discussion as sex, and so prostitution and abuse and all of these things are energies that entered this domain at that time. What would be your quick response, that could help listeners, Jamaicans, to understand it was a different world before?
Oh, Lord. We know for a fact that child molestation came with the colonizer.
Yes.
That was not something in our communities. Another thing that was not a part of our communities was the whole concept of incest. That was frowned upon. They would have been sent out of the tribe. Sexual energy is something that is powerful. It, in and of itself, is a ceremony that heals, that is pure, and women were highly honored, still are, and revered. The Taino creation story, the highest on our hierarchy, Semi, is Atabe, which is the Mother Earth, and the position of the Semi is with the legs open in a birthing position. So that was something that was cherished, was beautiful.
Yes.
It was considered a rite of passage, the whole experience of exchanging energies to create life. So it being defiled in this way is a very horrible thing.
Yes.
I mean, it's hard for some of our relatives on some of the other islands to do ceremony in public, and for them the mindset has changed, where they have to be very conscious of what they wear because of the type of energies they're drawing to themselves when their ancestors didn't have these concerns.
Yes. Very interesting. We thank you, Behike, Kalaan, Nibonri, representing Tainos of Jamaica and the region also. So listen out for Run Taino Run. Look them up on Facebook if you want to take part. Lots of different types of running events, but this one, for those of you who are remembering the stories of Taino lineages in your family, hearing a great-great-grand or an auntie self-identified as such, or even if you've heard of an alliance with some sort of association with the Maroon community, you may want to explore a little bit more there for clarity. So thank you so much, Behike, and all the best.
And all the best to you too, as we say, Seneko Kakuna, which means abundant blessing.
All right.
Seneko Kakuna.
Yeah, man, thanks for sharing with us on the program. Very interesting. I would certainly love to have you in studio at some stage so we can explore this matter a lot more.
Of course.
All right, thanks much.
All right.
Okay.
All right. And so, Dr. White,
Okay.
we will go back
Right into
into...
clips.
Okay. All right. So
we're coming on to the next part of the program, and we're going to be talking about sexual energy and the power of healing based on sexual energy. But we want you to listen to a few clips, because we're not claiming that we are any authorities on the subject, but there's a lot of information out there, and we just want to bring different perspectives to your attention, so we can have a discussion about the whole issue.
before starting, there was a context I just wanted to, I was checking to see if we were ready to open with that. But in looking back at the research, when you read the accounts, it really, really is riveting to hear how the persons coming from Europe literally documented how they saw the people that they encountered here. Now, it's our understanding that it's recorded that the first islands that Columbus would have seen Tainos, in the flesh, that his writings about them, from this side of the historical divide, you can't help but think, my gosh, was he lusting after the little children? I mean, when you read what he wrote, oh, they are beautifully made in a way that was unexpected. You know, because there are even accounts of them fearing what they would meet in this part of the world that they had not visited yet. So we are told. And that, you know, animal-headed, half-human, you know, monsters was one of the expectations. So to meet people who, for all intents and purposes, had 2 arms, 2 legs, walked upright, had languages of their own, had a settled community and cultural life of their own ideas about creation and God. This was just not expected. But I must highlight that it was noted the physical beauty